While we're on toilet paper, as a matter of efficiency, do you use both sides?
Come again? What do you mean?
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Roger.
And welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics
on our search to find the middle.
That's fatphobic.
I don't build wall. I just own halfway to Siwa.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
I act as if God exists.
Put your masks on.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams, my childhood, with your empty words.
Andy, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, Rog. How are you?
Good. You know, I've been a bit concerned about inflation and the cost of living at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know,
I just stopped buying bananas. Do you remember when, about 10 years ago, there was, or maybe longer, there was cyclones and the price of bananas went up so high that it actually affected CPI and they had to increase interest rates?
There was, I remember it really well. I remember where I was actually, because it was part of my life where I wasn't really concerned about the price of fruit per kilo. And so I grabbed a bunch of bananas. I was at work, actually, and I think I grabbed 2 bananas and I took it to the cash register. And when they rang it up, I was like, holy moly, this is for 2 bananas, I think it was something crazy like $16. And I was like, what? But then there was a mad line of people behind me, so I was just shamed into buying them. And there's a special place in Asian hell for people who overpay on fruit. And so I had to keep that deep, dark secret for a long time. Especially from my dad, right?
Well, the secret's out.
Well, yeah, he doesn't listen. But if you do, Pops, thanks. It was the social pressure that made me do it. But do you remember that Westpac released an animated ad that it tried to link through an animation, a cartoon, why they had to put the interest rates up because of the cyclones and the bananas. And it went down as the most condescending, trash-talking ad. They had to issue an apology and everything. It was fucking hilarious. We should try to look up that ad and kind of link it in the show notes.
This is why you shouldn't get economists to do the comms campaign on anything.
They're like, when supply drops and the price goes up, this means that we have to pass that cost on. It's like, oh, just fuck off.
I think obviously we're going through a period of adjustment, we might say, in the economy. And it seems like everything has gone up in price, which is really bizarre because, well, it's not bizarre because we sort of know why, but coming off it's a high contrast, right? Coming off COVID where there was money everywhere, everyone got a prize,
Yeah.
There was so much support, government support out there. Unemployment dropped. We all got to work from home and we were couldn't spend our money going out. So we had all this money that we didn't have before. And, since we've kind of gone back to normal, it's sort of now we're going back to the real world. And all right, so we've got to start paring back all of that support we gave. It turned out actually we overstimulated the economy. So then inflation gets you.
Overstimulated child.
It's a pretty tough time for many people out there.
Well, it also shows a weakness. Well, maybe not a weakness, but just the structural nature of, for most Australians, they're just in so much debt because of their housing situation that they're so heavily impacted by interest rate rises, right? And we've had such a long period with low interest rates. It's just really tough, right? Because we're talking about big sums of money, right? And when they put it up those basis points, it really kicks.
And the worst thing is now, everyone's saying, well, we need to get paid 7-8% more to compensate for the inflation. But what's that going to do? It's going to trigger more inflation. So, yeah, it's a little bit tricky.
Yes, well. So,
getting to the point, Roger, what are your top 3 hacks for saving money to offset some of these cost pressures?
Well, so I think that, I will start the conversation by saying that while I come from an Asian heritage, which is notorious around penny pinching and crafty ways to save money, I am probably not cut from that cloth, and I'm of a generation that probably rebelled against that. And so it doesn't come naturally to me. In fact, it's a constant kind of, strain in terms of my relationship with mum and dad that I don't have the same mentality and the value of money, which is true to an extent. But I think that, I do my part by dressing quite simply. I feel like I don't waste a lot of money on clothes.
Is that why you're recording in the nude?
You know how sometimes you have these reflections where you're like, I wear the same things over and over again. I'm like Steve Jobs, right? Like I've got a wardrobe that looks like I'm Batman, just like copies of the same old thing. And actually, when I think about when I bought them, we're going back decades, right? Like we're going back years and years and years. And I was thinking, gee, you really don't need many clothes if you find a bit of a sweet spot, a classic look. So I think, that's my contribution to, especially now that I work from home, you don't even have to worry about suits and things. So, I think that's what I'm doing. And also, I am partial to the Aldi shop every now and then too, which I think is a good way to save money without even trying. Just by being under that German structure, that powerful, authoritarian German structure, you just save money. You don't have to think about it.
Aldi it amazes me just how much cheaper. It is cheaper. Like this isn't like we're not sponsored by Aldi, but you go to Coles or Woolies and you spend $100 and you've probably got like one or two shopping bags, right? If that. Whereas you go to Aldi, like you need a trolley.
Yeah.
And it is just cheaper. It just is a lot cheaper.
But the ironic thing though is, as crazy as people are about price, like there are some things that people are very, very price sensitive to, and probably the biggest one is petrol, right? Fuel. People will like literally travel to the cheap fuel thing, even though it only saves them like somewhere between $3 and $10, depending on what they're filling up. But yet they will just go to whatever supermarket is closest to them. Even though that they can save like $20, $30 per shop if they went to Aldi compared to their local Wool's or Coles.
Yeah,
it's a convenience thing. I don't get that.
I must admit, when you were talking before about like your parents and that causes some conflict or whatever, I have some sort of things where it drives me nuts when I can see like dollar bills on the floor. So it's like when you're in the supermarket and we need milk, right? And so then, you see someone just grab like, oh, this is the first milk I see. Yeah. I'll grab this one, right? They pick up the $8 a litre sort of specialty organic milk from, fucking Byron Bay when there's like the $1 milk next to it. And they just haven't even looked at the price, haven't even thought about it. Like Byron Bay, organic, this is probably not going to be a good price, right?
Yeah.
And just like not having the intuition around like, yep, home brand stuff, it's going to be cheaper and probably just as good quality.
That's the luxury, man. That's the luxury of people. And my partner's like that too. And I love you. But she often doesn't really, for simple items in the supermarket, she won't look at the price because it's not, worth her attention, right? Like how much variance can there be on a bunch of asparagus? I need asparagus. So you just grab it, right? While a more kind of thrifty Asian or ethnic shopper will be like, we only buy asparagus when it drops below this threshold. And then they'll have to buy asparagus if it does drop below this threshold, because then we get to brag about it to everyone else. And I think it's like a mentality, right? But going back to that point of the expensive milk, that's why shopping at Woolworths and Coles, you always lose, right? Because you can be chasing that yellow ticket, that on special thing over and over, but it only takes one full price item to set you back. It's like, have you ever had the experience where you are driving in the car and you're making good time? You're kind of like borderline speeding and you're like, oh man, I'm going to get to this destination so fast. But all the risks that you've taken to kind of travel a little bit faster than you've meant to will be all negated if you slow down for any period of time. So you're like now hyper anxious about dropping your speed below the limit because you don't want to kind of have sped for no reason, only to like slow down at a snail's pace and lose all of that, right? I feel like shopping is a similar thing.
I missed my turn off on the highway the other week, so I lost about 20 minutes.
It's the same thing, right? So like that's why I think an Aldi approach is much better, right? You submit to your German overlords and they will look after you. The end bill will be better. Let's kind of step out of our own like what we do, I suppose. Have you kind of like what's the kind of craziest like cost saving thing that you've seen? Like apart from the whole, pieces on 60 Minutes or whatever, where you see someone like, reconstructing their groceries from dumpster diving. But what's the kind of things that you've seen that actually you're like, oh, okay, that's the way to do it? Because I've got a few from my background.
Well, I don't know, like, what would be the most crazy, but like, I don't know, like that coupon sort of hunting, like, or people who, you know, go to Coles and Woolworths and get their weekly brochure, and then they take it home and then they circle and they map out
extreme
like,
couponing,
where to go and what to buy and at what time to buy it. Yeah, like that's pretty full on, and I'm not sure. But I suppose some people have to do that, right? Like, there are
the whole Aldi catalog though. Like, people enjoy taking that back.
I'm one of them. I love it. I enjoy it. It's like it's especially because they like bury all this really interesting stuff all throughout the catalog. So it's not like the front page is the best and the rest is rubbish. It's like every page has a surprise. Like,
whoever's driving that catalog and who's curating the special buys, that's the real AI right there, because somehow they know what you want as a middle-aged man. They fucking know, and they serve it up to you systematically. It's like, oh, well, I'm sure you're interested in this very specific camping goods. And then you're like, oh, I never thought about that before, but I am. I really am. I need a solar panel generator.
I must admit, I'm not as strong a fan of the special buys from Aldi. I think they're just their regular groceries. Everything's like 25% cheaper. But yeah, I've just been burned like too many times with the special buys, like where either the item it's just like you want it to be like, oh, this soap, it's that Aesop sort of really nice stuff, and then it's just basically the shit normal soap in an Aesop bottle, you know, or whatever equivalent kind of example, and or either that, or you can get like equivalent sort of cheap like goods but that are better from like online. So there's
I've got love for the special buys, because actually I think that some of the more, like you said, you know, toiletries and stuff, like I stay away from that. But when they're actual items that are like interesting, right? Like, you know, like buying a freaking an axe that you didn't know you needed, or like a power tool, or like a drill bit set. Like, I love that stuff, right? So I've got a fair bit of love for special buys. But now I don't want to turn this into an Aldi thing, but it probably is a reflection on how oppressed we are in Australia because of the monopoly on supermarkets from Woolworths and Coles. That actually Aldi is really the only other game in town in terms of something very different, right? In terms of the model, and this kind of making efficiency sexy again, which is no, small feat, right? Like the people sitting down at the checkouts, right? People still can't get over that. It's like, why do we expect them to stand? And it's just, like they have a different attitude. So I kind of indicated the infamous like Asian cheapness and some of that culture, right? And I kind of have a few stories growing up, and I won't kind of obviously name names. So this could be within the family, could be within the community. But I think one of the most extreme ones that I ever saw, like, so obviously like in immigrant and Asian culture, like there's a real focus on not wasting things, especially when it comes to food. And they pretty much see through the kind of capitalist nature of industry and stuff, right? Like that they treat life as like they're walking through the street and all the businesses like are trying to extract shit from you, right? They're trying to take your money. And so if you can walk down that strip and not be hustled out of your dollars, like that's a win for the day, right? And so it kind of comes out in really, really innovative and interesting behavior that's often misunderstood. So the one that really surprised me is like, you know how you buy paper towel? And like when you think about it, paper towel is a bit of a luxury, right? It's like the ultimate convenience thing. You really should get like a towel or a sponge or whatever and like reuse it. But paper towel, you just whoosh, get rid of the mess and it's gone, right? So what I saw in some Asian households is like they'll use the paper towel, right, to absorb the liquid, and then they'll rinse it out and then they'll put it on the drying line. And then when it dries, you can reuse it again because like it's reabsorption,
it's
baby.
Absorbed.
Isn't that crazy? Like to me, I'm like, that defeats the purpose, right? Like, but it was also so ingenious. Like I love that. It's like, oh no, I'm not going to be fucking beholden to this marketing's case that I have to buy a new fucking roll of paper towel after I've used it because the thing dries. So why should I do it, right?
I'm gonna say,
labor's cheap, right?
The only circumstance where I could see myself doing that is if you're down to your last roll and you know you're not going to get. Imagine doing that with toilet paper, right? Like, we're running out of toilet paper. We'll just put it back on the line.
I only do it with wheeze, not poos. Don't be crazy.
But no, I think they've got dryers for these things nowadays.
But it's also like when I saw it, I'm like, what is this stuff? Like they had jerry rigged some like wire to like, and it was like drying in the laundry like jerky. Just sitting there, like I'm like, what the fuck is this going on here? Like it felt like some kind of illegal operation. Like you weren't actually legally allowed to do it. But yeah, so I think they do that, and you know, like just other little bits where they'll try to kind of like reuse things or give things a second life. So, you know, in most Asian households, you will see, and this is the irony about the whole single-use plastic bag issue. If you go to any fucking Asian or ethnic house, you'll quickly realize that plastic bags are not single-use. They are fucking multi-use.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
so,
no. Well, they used to be, I think in all households, I don't think that was an Asian thing. They were the rubbish bags, right? The bin bags.
Well, yeah, and like they have this system where they'll get a shopping bag, a plastic shopping bag, and they will fold it into the most like dainty like origami triangle, and they'll have like a bin full of like these essentially triangles ready to go, right?
So the cultural difference is that growing up, we didn't have like origami folded plastic bags in a bucket or a bin. We had the little old grandmas would go and like sew or knit these elaborate sort of
crocheted,
sort of kind of fabric-y type things, and there would be like a big sleeve to put in all your plastic bags, and you can pull one out from the bottom when you need.
Yeah. Look, the other thing I'll just kind of again share. So I mean, the paper towel one was pretty confronting. Like I think most people would be, well, you know, like you could do that, but I'm not going to. The other one that I think is just more like a different attitude towards like shame and like bending the rules, right? So a really good example of this is all you can eat or like any kind of buffet behavior. It is like the Wild West when it comes to Chinese people at a buffet, right? And I remember one time we were I think in like a Las Vegas. It was like a family thing, like a Las Vegas buffet, and you know they're legendary. They're very big, very opulent, and they kind of, you know, lots of things going on. And so of course, like it gets to that stage where you literally can't eat anymore. And now you enter phase 2 of the operation, which is like, how much fucking pastries can I fold in napkins and stuff in my pockets and bags? And there was like this production line of aunties like kind of individually wrapping in serviettes, like different kind of danishes and scrolls and buns and stuff, and they were getting like creative with like putting different wet ingredients in cups and stuff, and like ornate stacking. And I was just like, this shit is so embarrassing but also so impressive. And like I don't know whether this makes them the worst people or the best people in the world. Like I just I don't know. And you look at this at the same time, you're like, oh, okay, obviously that's not in the spirit of this particular, you know, restaurant. But then you look around and there's just so much waste, right? Like there's plates stacked high of shit that people have just left. And then there are just people with hairnets just dumping more into the trough. And you sit back and you're like, yeah, this is anarchy. You know, fucking wrap more pastries, wrap them away. Like if you're going to eat them, you should be able to take them, right? Because there's just so much wastage at a buffet.
You mentioned before that, you know, you've kind of like almost rejected the cheapskateness or whatever because it was like you had it growing up. But like, isn't there like times when you feel really glad that you've saved money?
Yeah, look, there is. Yeah, growing up there definitely is. But I suppose when I was kind of coming of age and like I rejected it because I didn't identify with it. And I always saw it as like being cheap as like not a good thing.
But like even like from a utilitarian point of view, like don't you like, I mean, let me give you an example. So I recently bought a new phone, right? And this phone retailed, I mean, not that anyone pays retail, but the recommended retail price is like, you know, something like $2,200 or something, right? So not a cheap phone, but like on the day it came out, or in fact before it came out because I pre-ordered it, I managed to combine so many different specials and like hacks to get like discounts off it that I ended up paying $1,300 for this phone, for this new phone, like that's not even released. So it's like top of the line, the best phone you could buy. And I've got it for $1,300. And like there's a bit of work to get to from $2,200 down to $1,300.
Yeah.
But like that's like a day's work. Like that's literally more than a day's work. And you kind of feel proud of yourself after you achieve something like that, right? Don't you get that same kind of feeling? Or don't you even bother?
I think the distinction I would have is that in terms of the balance between feeling proud that you saved the money because you have that money versus actually, no, you feel the satisfaction because you've won the game, you've cheated the system. And I think that I fall into that latter. It's like industry is trying to keep you down and extort you and take you for everything you're worth. And you've found a way somewhat out of that to hold your head high. And I really identify with that. But again, it's just I think that I feel like that for the big things like you mentioned, but for nickel and diming things and kind of what you go through, like I think that's a different story. For example, if you saw a 5-cent coin on the ground, would you always pick it up?
I don't even like getting 5-cent coins in change.
I actually haven't even held a 5-cent coin in my hand for like, I can't actually remember the last time I held a 5-cent coin. And this is not me trying to brag about my wealth by saying that, but I actually can't. I can't remember. I've stopped carrying a wallet over the last 5 years. I don't really carry coins. Everything's through my phone. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it does prove a point though that like the mentality of someone who will always pick that up, right, versus someone who doesn't.
Well, on that note, while we're on picking up 5-cent coins from the ground, do you have those people who go around the neighborhood picking out cans to get the 10-cent collection from the return and earn, like, cans and stuff that you get 10-cent refund?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two camps that I see. One is the kids doing it.
Kids are fine. I think kids, yeah.
Yeah, but it's usually like a family affair, right? Because you can't just let young kids just raid cans. Garbage bins and things. But so I see like that, and I kind of like that. I think that's more from a environmental aspect and teaching kids lessons. But then you see the almost always an old man hitting up the bins and kind of trying to cash it in. Sometimes they got the whole trolley thing or the little rucksack. Yeah, I don't see anyone in between in my area.
So in my neighborhood, right? So we've got we live in a unit block, right? And we have bins that are on our property, and there's like 2 or 3 little old Asian ladies that for some reason they use like strollers that they've found at like a council cleanup on the street, and they go, oh, that'd be great for my can collecting operation.
Oh, you mean like real strollers that kids go in?
Yeah. But the kids, there's no kids with them. They just have them for the cans, right? And they just go from neighborhood to neighborhood, and then they tie all these extra bags, like these garbage bags, like tied to the so this thing of like cans they've collected ends up being huge by the end of it. But yeah, they come onto our property, and see, like that actually irks me. Like that they come onto your property and go into your bins and pull out the cans. Like it irks me because it's like, I don't know. I just don't like it. Like I don't like the idea of someone coming onto your property, and also I don't like it because it's like it's already in the recycling system. It doesn't need to be taken out of the recycling system so you can collect 10 cents, right? Like this is not how this system is meant to work, right? Yeah. So it bugs me even like at a principle level. But then like my wife gets so upset with me when I say, hey, off this property, like this is private property. You're not supposed to be here, or like because I actually
like yelled them away.
Well, I did.
Oh, nice.
Like, because I was just like saying, like, imagine someone
is it because they're Asian? Does that make it easier to do that?
No, it's just because it's like it's gross. Like, get out of the property. Like, I just said, anyway, I did that once. I said, oh, look, I just said, look, this is private property. Like, can you like not come and do this? Like, I think it said something like that. Like, I don't think I was
property. Okay, I wasn't done.
I wasn't that harsh, but like, yeah, I got berated by my wife after. It's like, oh, you don't know her story. She might, I was like, fuck, I don't care what her story is. Like, if she needs money if she needs to collect cans to get money, she should like go see Centrelink or her children or whatever.
dude, she's already got the pram. So, no, that's actually, yeah, really, really interesting concept around that, like coming onto someone else's property, and especially like it's a gold mine, right? Because all the bins are lined up in the apartment block. So it's like, it's the honeypot. You know, if they were in the suburbs, they'd have to go a far greater distance to get the same
it's
yield.
one thing. See, even if they did it on bin day, that would like rub me up the wrong way. But like that they come onto your property when it's not bin day and
really?
then go in and take all the cans from your bins.
Do you think there are warring factions like of Asian ladies that are like, no, this is my turf, this is my bin,
probably
off my block?
I'm sure they've coordinated, like divvied up the zones. Like you've got you get Monday, Wednesdays.
Keep off the east side, and then then they'll start to like try to bribe you to form relationships. It's like, actually, we get to Mr. Andy, and we give him saki, and he let us get can.
I'm editing it out.
we give him present, and he let us keep can. And then it's like, so they've got your protection as the Don for your unit block. That'd be hilarious, man. Okay, what would make it worthwhile though? Would it be like if they had a service where, you know, some arrangement where they came in and sorted your rubbish and and took it out? Would you then let them do that?
We don't need that service. It's in the rubbish already. It's like those annoying bin chickens, right? Like they go in and they unpack, like pick at your rubbish, and you know, it's like, these are people. They're not bin chickens, but that's kind of how I see them now, because that's I don't know, that's how they behave. Like
they're long beak like noses. And I think did you see that story about the guy who ate the quarter bin chicken and ibis and actually roasted it like a duck and ate it, and he had to go to court and pay a fine and everything?
I don't know what like the hygiene of that would be, but I actually reckon they probably wouldn't be too bad. Like you probably do it all right.
That guy like single-handedly set the Vietnamese cause back. And apparently he was like a repeat offender as well. Like it wasn't his first bin chicken; he had the taste for it. Well, I mean, in that example, right? Like I think that. Yeah, they could be doing it for money, or they could be doing it just to pass time or whatever, or it's just like out of habit and stuff. But yeah, it's hard to know those things, right? And I think that's always the judgment when you see someone rifling through the bin. Like, what is it, right? Like, what kind of racket's going on here, or is it they need to because they literally are destitute? It's hard to know. If I was a betting man, I would kind of say those Asian ladies are not destitute. They're not. Like, this is almost like a little bit of a hobby kind of side hustle for them, right? That keeps them busy and is like good value, right? But if I saw a white person doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a hardcore bum, right there.
Yeah, this was my pushback to my wife when she got upset with me. I said, well, like,
yeah, this is an operation. They're definitely pulling it in someone's garage and like getting it all done.
I think I saw something like that go on. And it's like, well, these are people who they either have access to the age pension because they're usually quite old, or if they don't because they're, let's say, migrants or something, then they're here on the proviso that their kids are supporting them, right? And they shouldn't need this operation to like literally feed themselves. Like this is like you say, this is like the extra supplementary income that they have. And like, that's fine. Like if it's meant for like kids to go around and pick up cans and buy baseball cards or something, like that's, or, you know, whatever kids buy these days, then that's great. Like that's good. That's admirable, but like not adults. Come on.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I think it's like, it's correlated to this idea of like social shame, I suppose, as well. Like, I think that being cheap, especially like for a man, is like, it's a tough kind of thing to embrace. And I think it usually comes out later in life and usually after you've snagged a partner. I think that like, because so much of a man's identity is about resource and being generous with your resource to special people and especially your partner and things like that, that I think that it's hard to kind of be like a real cheapskate in that part of your life. And I think that the kind of mentality comes out a bit later, right? But like for women, I'm not sure that there's any kind of issue about that, right? Like, I don't think that there's the same kind of thing of, you know, pre-partnering versus not. They can just be as cheap as they want, as their kind of personality lets them the whole time.
So I think with women, my observation is it's less about women being cheap or not cheap, but more about different degrees of like efficiency associated with it. And there's like a whole kind of like the whole housewife mindset and identity as well. So in an era where like, let's say in the 50s, right, and you had women were housewives, right, staying at home to manage the household, like the whole efficiency of like, I'm going to take my budget and make it go as far as possible because I'm like going to be the best housewife I can be, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna lock this shit down.
Yeah, and that whole efficiency thing, and like I know where to get the best deal for whatever it is because I'm really good at what I do, and that's completely gone now because that's not the identity that women have anymore, right? It's like, I'm not a fucking housewife. I'm a, and so because I think sometimes with men, some men can get quite discerning about like, oh, I'm going to do all the research to work out exactly where to get the best deal. Like I'm going to import it from another country if it's going to save me like $500 or whatever. And it almost becomes like a scientific approach. Whereas, I keep coming back to the example of like the milk in the supermarket. I would always be looking at the unit prices on the shelf tags and always thinking like, where's the best deal? Which one am I going to buy? I had a mate, he said he got upset with his wife because she bought avocados. It's like, oh, why did you buy avocados? They're so expensive. I'd get slapped down if I said don't buy avocados. It's like avocados off the shopping list, but now they're too expensive. But like, yeah, it's just there's a difference there in mindset.
You do get something close to what you're talking about in like when we go visit, to Asian countries and stuff, and they're just like they really pride themselves on knowing like where the local shop or where to find the best thing, or they've always got a guide for something. It's like, oh, you want this particular piece of jewelry, like this is the place you go, right? And they always like very have their nose to kind of the beat and kind of understand where to get things. And I really like admire that because that's quite hard to develop those networks and stuff. They might not always be true, but at least you have, like you said, that urge or that want to try to find and like have an approach of like how to get the best for the cheapest. And I think that's where, I will call out, I've been a bit harsh on Asian culture here. It's not about always getting the cheapest thing available. It's about value to the point of like, if you are paying money, and often, showing off is a big part of Chinese culture, right? It's about boasting that you got the best deal. And it's more about that, right? Like you're willing to spend on certain things, but you want it to be like, how Donald Trump lives his life in the art of the deal. Everything is a deal and you're trying to negotiate the best you can, right? And I think that's where modern day has trained us to not do that. And it's in the form of like fixed price stuff. So back in the day, like for most people around the globe, everything is a negotiation, and the art of haggling is really what's missing here, right? Like, and you get a taste for it when you go overseas and you go to markets and stuff. Or like, there's a thrill to haggling, or when someone goes, oh, let Andy do it. He's a great like haggler at the market. There's a source of like, there's a sense of pride that you get that you actually know this is quite a manly thing, right? Like to be assertive and to like be able to be good, kind of discussing with the vendor and people trusting you to get a deal done, right? Because that's like a man of action, right? And I think we've lost that here because it's now seen as like really crude and embarrassing, right? Like, for example, I was watching this thing about like this, freaking legendary haggler, and he like haggles everything. This guy from America, like he'll go through Burger King and he'll haggle Burger King, and 85% of the time it works. And in times where like, say in that Burger King example where they can't because it's policy, they'll often give him something extra. So look, it's against policy. I can't lower the price for you, but perhaps I'll give you like some extra fries or something. And he'll hit him with like every angle. He'll be like, okay, well, you can't give me that. What about like a burger that's been sit there that you couldn't sell or something? Or what about, can you throw some like extra chicken patties on there? They're going to be thrown away anyway. Or do you have like this discontinued thing or whatever, or more sauce packets? And it's like everything is a haggling. And I can just imagine like the poor wife or whatever sitting there just like so embarrassed in like every interaction. But really, like that's what it's about, right? Like if you have the ability to kind of put yourself forward and not be afraid to ask for things, you probably get them in most cases, or something at least.
So one of the tips I've got is when you're in a bricks and mortar retail shop, right? Because I mean now a lot of people shop online because that's you have the benefit of just searching the product and that you're interested in and then buying it from wherever the cheapest shop is, right? Which is all the work done for you. But when you're in bricks and mortar shop, it's a bit harder because you're in the shop and they've got the product and they've got the price. But like, sure, you could buy it online, but then you've got to wait like a week for it to be delivered. And sometimes you just want whatever that thing is right there and then, right? Yeah. And that's particularly true for like electronics, where electronics are usually cheaper online than in the shop. So usually what I do if I'm like in a shop, like an electronics shop, like somewhere like JB Hi-Fi in Australia, you know, I'll say, oh, that looks cool, I might buy that. But I'll always get my phone out, Google the item. Okay, Amazon has it for this much, or, you know, this other shop has it for this much. So that's the way. And then I get it. I still get the product. I get it on the same day, but like I get it at the best price.
I think the convenience is one aspect to that. But I think that since I've recently been put onto Alibaba Express, risk is probably the second element, because remember back in the day when online shopping was still getting its foothold, right, in the public consciousness, there was a certain risk involved, right? When you bought something from eBay, you're like, it may turn up, or it may turn up like with the wrong power attachment. It may, you know, you may not get it, or may be broken, and there's nothing really you can do about it. And then over the course of time, you've got giants of e-commerce and stuff and things became safer and people parted with their money more freely. But Alibaba Express is like a way to get it straight from the supplier, right, in small quantities. Alibaba obviously is the biggest marketplace for hooking up businesses with suppliers, but you usually have to, you know, buy a pallet of 10,000 or 1,000 pieces of underwear or whatever you want. Alibaba Express, it lets you buy consumer level quantities, you know, like 1 or 2 pieces of the product. And often you'll see the same stuff that you see in Australian domestic stores, but for ridiculous prices, like supplier prices or something. For example, you know any phone kiosks that you see in the shopping centers, right? They'll be selling cases for your iPhone, your MacBook, whatever it is, right? And they'll be selling them for like $20 or something. You log on to Alibaba Express tonight, and you will see that you can buy one of those for literally 80 cents. Is exactly the same, because that's where they get it from, right? And sometimes you have to pay another $1 for shipping, or, you know, $1.50 for shipping. But that's crazy, isn't it? Like, that's literally the business model. They'll get the supplier. They go from supplier, the same one from Guangzhou or whatever it is, and now you can get it direct. And it is a deep, dark hole. It's like crazy. Have you dipped your toe into Alibaba Express?
I'm a skeptic. This is what I will say in relation to Alibaba Express is, have you ever heard the saying, it's too good to be true? That's what I've got to say about that. So no, it's just like, it's okay. For every amazing buy like that, there's like 5 shit, like getting ripped off deals done but
isn't this the Silk Road? Isn't this the way to find the bargain?
See, this is the thing, right? Sure, for that very one specific needle in the haystack, if you can go direct to the factory, you will save some money. But how do you know you've chosen the right factory? How do you know you've got the right product that's at the right good quality that you need? Like, that's the role of intermediaries. That's the role of retailers, wholesalers. Like, they play that role because they intermediate the market. That's where they add value. They cut out the crap. They get rid of the factories that are shit. And they clip the ticket, but you get less variance in quality. So now, I'm not comparing the counterfactual for me isn't, you know, the $20 case in the Westfield, right, from the kiosk in Westfield, right? That's not the counterfactual for me. The counterfactual might be like, you know, someone who's set up like an eBay shop from their garage, who's done all of that hard work for you. They found, this factory shit, this factory shit. Oh, this one's okay. We'll get these cases. And instead of that case being 80 cents, it might be $2, right? Or something like that. But it's much better buying it from that operation that's done all of that trial and error so you don't have to do it yourself.
I know, but it's not 80 cents, Andy. It's $20.
No,
It's like
not,
that's
not,
the difference.
not
It's
online.
like $1 to $20.
No. I whatever case you're talking about, you send it to me. I bet I could find that from an alternative retailer for an equivalent price, but I would be buying it from a retailer, not a bricks and mortar retailer, but it might be an online retailer.
They're just those retailers just drop ship now anyway, straight from the supplier.
Yeah, but that's where they've added value, right? Because they've worked out which ones are the best ones to get from, right? Because you don't want to have to be like, okay, have you ever been to Guangzhou or the Pearl River Delta region? Have you ever seen how many fucking factories there are in that part of China? Like, it's just wall-to-wall factories, right? Hundreds of thousands of factories. It's nonstop for hundreds of kilometers, right? How do you know which one to engage with, right? Oh, you see some pretty little pictures on Alibaba Express. It's not enough information.
Yeah, like
you need to know
10,000
which, like,
satisfied Frenchmen can't be wrong, right?
like, anyway,
We got peer reviews, baby.
So I don't think we're that far apart. Like, I think I'm just saying there's some role for like paying the extra $1 instead of the 80 cents, paying $1.80 to have to buy just one that's is going to be good than to buy
and there's
3 shitty,
like you said, there's different
cent.
levels, right? Like what you're willing to risk on, right? Like I like this use case was one that I literally just went through with my mum. She agonized over the Alibaba phone cases for like 3 days of doom scrolling on Alibaba. And let me tell you, their AI algorithms aren't that accurate. So every phone case you see, you might see something very horrific underneath of a sexual nature. So that was interesting. But
I think
anyway,
you told us about the dildo story, didn't you?
yeah. So I set it up for her, and it's amazing. So because it was that she was going to buy one from one of those Phones R Us kiosks in Westfield, and she got exactly the same one for literally $1.50 delivered. And yeah, it was fine, right? So like that's the experience, and I know it's not the only one. And I'm just saying that there are levels to online shopping, right? Like depending on how much risk you're willing to take, you can get ridiculously low, and that's only been available to us in a very in the very near future, right?
But see, like, I think this is where like phone cases are like probably a bad example, because a phone case is okay, it's silicon, it's a phone case that fits this type of phone. Like, there's not a lot of scope to go wrong, right? But
yeah, the silicon markets is really what I'm talking about, Andy.
but like, it's the products where they can go wrong that you've got to be like a little bit careful. Like, and I think
I thank you for talking me out of buying that Shure microphone from Alibaba, which was obviously a counterfeit. It was just too good to be true.
Well, mine works perfectly well from Amazon. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's you sometimes you just like, if there's a price, it's too low. Yeah, it's too good to be true. It's like on our upcoming trip when we're looking for hotels, we're comparing all the different websites. That's like, so we might know the hotel that we want to stay in, right? And then it's just a question of which site do you book it through, and we use those sort of aggregators and stuff. And then you've got you buy it from the hotel itself, and it's like really expensive. Then you get like the like your booking.coms or your Expedias or whatever, and it's like a bit cheaper. And then you get these other ones that are like really, really cheap, like you're 20-30% cheaper than the rest. And it's like, do you do it? Do you risk it? And so in the end, we like ended up booking with like Expedia or hotels or booking.com or whatever, because like, just like, at least you're not going to get fucked over, right? At least there's not like going to be room for you and stuff like that. Today we've talked about like getting, a product at a cheap price. But I want to take us to a slightly different dimension of this, which is not so much getting the cheapest price for a given product, but rather moving along the spectrum of here's the cheap version of the product versus here's the really expensive version of the product. So to give a practical example, like let's say buying a car, like do you buy the Chinese manufactured version of the car, or do you buy like European, luxury car, right? Or clothes, do you go to Kmart to buy your clothes, or, do you go to like high-end fashion, to buy clothes? So
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that kind of quality versus price trade-off?
Again, I think this is probably where I've kind of been influenced, because it's so intertwined. Like having a focus on quality, right, is so intertwined with like your status and how well you're doing in life, and how you like the pride you take in the different aspects of your life, that it's hard to separate, and it's kind of hard to understand how much are you attracted to that because of those more outward, externally validating things, versus actually you have an enjoyment for it, right? Like, how people who love high-end watches, they're always like, oh, I'm just a lover of the engineering, like it really excites me. It's like, no, you like it because you get to show off your expensive watch, right? And you've become a collector because you can boast to other collectors and things like that, right? So I'm always caught up between those two things, but I definitely prioritize quality when I can. And I do, whenever I get into a hobby or something, I'm never buying the entry level. I'm never I'm always attracted to the kind of quality aspect of it, right? Because that's what excites me about things. And I think it's one of the realizations I have with my own character as I grow older, that when I get into something, I fall in love with the gear, with the kit, with the paraphernalia, with the culture. And because of that, when I'm passionate about something, I do really go to the quality. Now, if I'm not passionate about something, that's when I can become quite Spartan and quite utilitarian about it. So I think it ranges on that for me, right? Like for cars, I must say that for a big part of my life, I did fall into that. I started when I was young. I was really passionate about cars, and I really saved up for my first car. And I'm not sure if you remember it. It was like a Japanese import twin turbo, and you sat in it. And it was like being in what did you describe it? Like the Back to the Future car or something, with like lights everywhere and stuff. And then I got that out of my system really early. And from that point up until recently, I've been a very much like a point A to B kind of guy, right? Like I had like a really efficient kind of like Honda that was just a little bit boring, but it was like a great car, and just sucked all the life out of like the love of cars. But I didn't care about it. I didn't prioritize that in my life. Like it wasn't a flex for me to be driving around in a Mercedes or some kind of sports car. It was just to me like, that's a car, and that's not part of my identity, right? But when I'm passionate about something, I will pour some money into it because I do fall in love with the gear. I mean, where do you sit?
So like when I was younger, I was a lot more like cheap in that regard, like not really valuing quality quite so much. But as I've gotten older, and it's partially probably having the money to begin with. So like I think when you're younger, the choice is like the cheap tennis racket plus going to see a movie with your friends, or getting the better tennis racket and not going to the movies, right? So you just got to make those compromises. Yeah. But so it's partially like having more resources and money and all that sort of stuff too. But also just like knowing that like you get burned when you buy the cheapest of whatever.
Oh, so burned. Right? Like I think the entry level, when I talked about the entry level, I think especially when it comes to hobbies, it is responsible for so many people walking away from hobbies really early on, is they get the nasty entry level stuff and they just have a horrible experience with things. Skateboarding's a really good example of that, right? Like if you go and buy a Kmart skateboard for like $15 or whatever, $20, and you try to ride that thing, you will hate skateboarding, right? And it's the same for a lot of different things where like Kmart's not interested in fostering your love of skateboarding. They're just giving you the cheapest, nastiest skateboard that they can make in a factory. And it has nothing to do with like the enjoyment of skateboarding. And so if you just like went to the next level up, all of a sudden you'd have a completely different experience, and you might fall in love with it, but you don't because you got that shitty skateboard from Kmart.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, what's the biggest burn you've had in terms of like cheaping out?
Oh, I have to think about that. It's usually
probably the lapel microphone that you bought.
We shall not speak of that. Oh, it's just usually when you buy something like and you think, okay, well, I've bought this cheap thing, it'll be great, and then it's not so great. Like, I don't know, it's just maybe because I've gotten away from buying cheap shit. I've actually, like, some of the Aldi stuff's fitting into that category, which is why I was probably reflect the comment earlier.
Yeah, I find it with kids' toys as well. Like, kids don't understand it. You know, they just want what they want, right? And you're just like, no, that is literally going to break or is going to, and they just don't believe you. They're like, no. And then they're always so disappointed when it does break. It's like, these things are not meant to last. So, like, this was a very strange episode to prepare for. And I use prepare in quotation marks. But what it did suck me into was a YouTube series, or a series I found on YouTube that focuses on the cheapest people in America. And they're like carnival attractions, so to speak, but it's hilarious, you know. And I saw this one guy, and they're always, you know, truth be told, they're always couples. That like to my previous point, right? Because you can only really get cheap after you've locked someone down, right? So they're always like the men, and they're always married, and they have a suffering wife, right? And this one guy was so cheap that he would kind of wake up every morning and portion out toilet paper squares. So he did 10 for him, 10 for his wife, and he'd like lay them down and portion them every day. And that was how much they had to use, right? That was like the budget. And that was hilarious. And like, so the wife's like little revolt was that she would always use more than her 10 to like leave him with less, but somehow they'd still make it work. That was like a pretty crazy one.
While we're on toilet paper, as a matter of efficiency, do you use both sides?
Come again? What do you mean? Do you mean you fold it and use?
I think that's.
What I can't get down with, you know, for a while there was this campaign around like, oh, you fold